In the opening scene, we see a bubbling city with Christmas festivities in the air. A girl, named Holly, begins narrating how Christmas was always different for her. She has been an elf at Santaville since she was 5 years old and knew the names of every reindeer, and so many more details, even before she learned arithmetic. This takes away a great part of her childhood, such that she missed out on slumber parties and school field trips. She didn't think it was bad initially. When she became a teenager, she got a different perspective about it. The magic she felt about Christmas has greatly reduced after working in Santaville for so long. As many more people got into their holiday spirit, all she could see was more work. As she keeps attending to the customers, a boy named Peter notices that as an elf, she is not in the holiday spirit. She reminds him that Santaville is open every single day of the year, so one can say it's nothing special to her anymore. However, the boy confesses that being around her puts him in the holiday spirit. This makes her blush. Holly takes Peter to where Santa is telling the kids stories. She reveals that he is her dad. They go back inside and she discovers that he doesn't know about the Nutcracker. This amazes her because it is a great Christmas tradition that almost everyone knows about. She narrates the Nutcracker story to him and urges him to see the movie. She notices a unique necklace on him and he tells her that he makes things. Her father walks in with some kids in the middle of their conversation, and before she can turn back, Peter is gone. But he leaves the necklace for her. It's 15 years later and Holly has moved to Boston. On her way into her office, she calls her secretary, Brenda, complaining about the Christmas trees that are everywhere. However, she is in for a shock because when she gets in, right there on her secretary's table, are several Christmas ornaments. She complains about them and claims they are in an office and not the North Pole. One would never have thought that she worked in Santaville in her early years. On entering her office, she gets to work and manages to close a deal that doubled her sales for the month. Her boss, Mr. Jennings, enters and she happily tells him about the deal she just closed. However, he notices that there's something about the Christmas holiday season that gets her into overdrive. He reminds her that Christmas is a happy time, so she should stop making it feel like it's the worst time of the year. He reveals that he looked over her schedule for December and he is shocked to see that she planned to work 12 hours a day for the 12 days that lead to Christmas. Her excuse for that is that they are so busy and she has to finalize all the last-minute orders. He tells her that if she has decided to stay late, her staff are obligated to stay late as well when they would rather be with their families or celebrating the joy of Christmas with their friends. She awkwardly realizes the consequences of her actions. So, he advised her to go home early sometimes, put up a Christmas tree, sip an eggnog, and write Santa a letter. She argues that she is quite close to Santa and he knows that she is too busy for that. In the next scene, she speaks to her dad on the phone. She has been away for 3 years and he has greatly missed her. He wishes that she is at home, but she mentions that she is too busy during the holidays and would even be busier in the first week of January. Since he misses her, she suggests that he come to Boston, but he reminds her that Santaville never closes all year round, so he can't leave. She tells him to think of it as visiting his daughter, but he reminds her, like he always says, that Santa doesn't have children but only elves, and she is his #1 elf. After ending the call, she sees a postcard from Santaville and gets emotional about the time she was there. In the next scene, Santaville is bubbling with several Christmas activities as always. Santa Nick goes about his business as usual. He is attending to a kid who wants numerous kinds of gifts. He explains to the boy that the Christmas season is not just about games, but it is a magical period where wonderful things that one never expects happen. He takes the boy to Santa's workshop, but the child is disappointed to see carved-out figures instead of the real deal. While Santa is trying to convince the boy, a man joins them and helps Santa explain better. The man is a grown-up Peter and Santa introduces him as his elf. Once again, the boy is disappointed that he is not an actual elf. Peter explains that he helps Santa around, which is the work of an elf. As if things could not get any worse, Earl, Nick's friend and lawyer, who doubles as a second Santa, wants to come outside, but Nick quickly pushes him back in. The boy ends up disappointed with the whole show and asks that his mom take him to the mall instead. Santa wonders what has changed because kids used to love Santa's workshop. Peter tells him that kids have changed but Santa's workshop has not. Earl finally comes out and apologizes for earlier. He didn't know they had a kid there because people rarely come around. Meanwhile, Holly is still at work. While Nick and Earl are eating, he reveals that she won't be able to come home because it's a busy time of the year for her. Earl mentions that it is the same thing she says every year. Nick argues that she has an important job in which people depend on her, similar to how people depend on him. Nick is frustrated at how things have turned out at Santaville. Simultaneously, Nick and Holly stare out their window. Suddenly, Nick decides that he will get the sleigh and take Jenny home. Then he will appreciate her for making the pie they ate. This sudden change of his amuses Earl, who reminds him that she has been trying to get his attention for 5 years, but she has been ignored. He explains that he simply wants to give her a ride home under the moonlight. Just as he had said, he goes to pick Jenny to give her a ride home. She is pleasantly surprised to see him. He boasts about his elf, which is a horse, and in a bid to show her that the animal can carry them both, he crashes into an oncoming train. In the next scene, Holly arrives from Boston. She still dishes out orders to Brenda on some work that she left abruptly after having been called back home. Peter meets with her at the train station to pick her up. He reveals that he was involved in a sleighing accident. She is angry that he decided to drive a sleigh in the middle of the night. She is more surprised to hear that he is home when he is still supposed to be in the hospital. Quite typical of Nick, who is always up and about. When Peter assures her that he, Jenny, and Earl can take care of him, Holly believes he doesn't need her there. He is shocked to hear her say this because Nick has always been talking about her. When they get to his truck, he mentions that her father says she works in the city. His inquisitiveness makes Holly ask for his name and if he works for her father. He used to work for Nick, but now, he is just a volunteer at Santaville and does all jobs around town. However, he likes living in the town. All through the time he is talking, Holly is pressing her phone. He tries to remind her of who he is, but she is uninterested, so he leaves her alone. When they arrive at the inn, she is surprised at how deserted the place looks. Peter reveals that they don't serve lunch anymore and dinner is only on the weekends because the business has gotten slow. She is shocked to hear this because the place was packed with families during the Christmas season. She is once again shocked when her dad welcomes her into a wheelchair. She doesn't know that the accident was this severe, but Nick plays around as usual. She is angry that he gets himself into such a situation with an old horse. Everyone around him has been telling him the same and she thinks he deserves it. Nick is happy to have his daughter home after a long time and he has even hung the mistletoe. She wants him to worry about getting better, but that is not something to be worried about. His daughter is back and he thinks it's just going to be like old times. When Peter mentions that he is hungry, Nick boasts of Holly's pot roast, which doesn't taste bland like Peter's turkey meatloaf. The men get into an argument about the turkey meatloaf and Holly has to stop them by accepting to make the pot roast. Peter meets her in the kitchen. She is about to go to the grocery store to get the ingredients. He notices that she is still pacing herself, which makes her wonder how he knows that about her. He reminds her that she once mentioned that since Santaville is open every day of the year, she paces herself for the whole Christmas spirit. She can't help but notice that it seems like they have met before. Peter advises her to tell Nick that she is not staying for Christmas because he is already getting his hopes up. She is about to talk him down for meddling in her business when she receives a call from Brenda. He allows her to borrow his truck to go to the market before leaving. Brenda informs her of the latest information about work. After leaving the grocery store, Holly runs into an old high school mate, Della, who is now married. Della talks about how great she looks, especially seeing her without her elf outfit. This makes Holly awkward because it reminds her of the boring life she used to live. Della is now married to her high school sweetheart and they have 3 boys together. She boasts of her husband having his lumber yard now. Then she asks if she is seeing anybody, but Holly is not, claiming she is busy. Della suggests that the 3 of them should meet for coffee at the inn the next day. She leaves Holly no choice but to accept. Della complains about how nobody finds time to do their Christmas traditions at Santaville anymore. Holly, Nick, and Peter eat the pot roast and they thank her. Her father reveals that Earl is engaged in double Santa duty at the Santaville and the mall. He thinks it is wonderful that she is around to help out. Holly finally decides to tell her dad that she won't be staying for Christmas, but Peter interrupts by clearing the table. She reveals that she is just there to see him get well, but she can't stay. Her father knows she did not move back home, but hopes she would at least stay till after Christmas. She reveals that she will only stay for a couple more days and not for Christmas because she has to get back to her work in the city. Her father tries to convince her to stay since it is Christmas, but she claims some people depend on her and she has to go back. She offers to hire people to help him till he gets better, but he refuses. He reminds her that families are supposed to take care of families. Peter offers to help him, but he refuses to accept that she will leave Santaville. He leaves a frustrated Holly who wonders if he listened to anything she said at all. Later, she receives a call from Mr. Jennings, who asks about her father's health. She promises to be at work the following week. He informs her that she would be the only one working because others and their clients would be on vacation. He thinks that is what she should be doing as well. She refuses to take a vacation, claiming that she loves her job, which is the same thing she has done for 2 years now. He forces her to take a vacation. When he ends the call, she throws away her phone in frustration. However, right there on the floor, she picks up some papers. They are urgent notices and bills. She angrily goes to meet her dad for not attending to the bills, and he claims that he is simply a little behind. She can't believe that he is trivializing the notices because some of the bills are 6 months. Nick reveals that he tried keeping up, but they had a slow year. She is not happy that he did not inform her, but he doesn't want to bother her. He is hopeful that December will undoubtedly be their best month of the year while helping them make the payments. Holly is worried because they can come after his assets, but he advises her to have a little faith and stop worrying, because wonderful things happen at Christmas. She advises him to come up with a real miracle because if not, there wouldn't be a Santaville the following year. He thinks about her statement when she leaves. In the next scene, Holly decides to step into her father's predicament. She goes to meet Mr. Koval, the bank manager. She reminds him that he has known her father for 30 years because the bank loaned him the money to renovate Santaville. He agrees because he used to take his family to Santaville and it was like their tradition. However, technology has taken over such that his grandkids have access to innumerable channels, and they are not interested in going to Santaville. He tells her that the Santaville they know is gone and the place is a shadow of itself now. As it stands, the business prospect is not promising, and since he has extended her father's loan more times than he should have done, there's nothing he can do about it if they don't clear their bills. Holly gets back home, looking frustrated, and Peter sees her. Inside, Earl is dressing up to go out as Santa. He mentions that the bank manager revealed that Holly was there to see him, and Nick states that she is taking care of certain things for him. Earl reminds him that he has been his friend and lawyer for a long time and he is ready to help him in any way that he can. Nick reveals that he needs $50,000, but he assures his friend that everything will be fine. Holly meets with Jenny and she narrates how he got injured. She gushes about how cute he looked under the moonlight that day, and this makes Holly suspect that something is going on. She reveals that they have both been flirting with each other for a long time. Holly appreciates her for caring for Nick despite him being difficult. Jenny notices that something is getting her worried, but she refuses to share her worries with her. Regardless, she assures her that will always be available if she needs her. While Jenny goes to receive a call, a man walks in and approaches Holly. He thinks that she is not a local and she notices that he doesn't look like one either. He reveals he is in town to visit an old college friend and his wife. She figured his friends were Roger and Della Wallace. He is surprised she knows them. So, she reveals that she is also there to meet them. They realize that they had been set up for matchmaking. Rogers calls in claiming that his boys are down with fever. He can't stop smiling when the man describes her as good-looking. After ending the call, he introduces himself as Ben Richards, even as Holly tells him he doesn't have to go along with their friend's plan. Ben and Holly take a walk around and he is amazed at how beautiful Santaville is, especially since her dad put it all together. She credits her mom as well for having the business sense in the family. She supported his dream after knowing how much he loved being Santa to the kids. Ben believes Holly had the most amazing childhood ever, especially since she grew up in Santaville. She smiles nervously. He wonders how her dad affords to keep the place open all year round, but she reveals that he can't afford to keep the place anymore because business is not what it used to be. Time has changed and no one is interested in Christmas traditions anymore. So, currently, he could lose the property. Ben suggests that he sells the property, but she reveals that selling it is not an option. He mentions that it seems they need a financial advisor and he happens to be one. He promises to help her out and make some phone calls. Holly is extremely excited to hear this. This means they have a good chance of getting out of their messy situation. She goes to Santa's workshop in search of her dad, but instead, she meets Peter working there. She is surprised to see that he has carved out so many nutcrackers. She wonders if he has tried marketing them, but he maintains that it's just a hobby for him. He reveals that someone told him a story about the ballet a long time ago and he has been hooked ever since. This is when she realizes who he is. The young Peter she met as a teenager, who makes things. She remembers that he left abruptly that day, but he reveals that he came back. She leaves to go in search of her father and asks that they talk later. She is in disbelief. She meets her dad and explains that the bank manager is unable to help them. Then she reveals that she met a financial advisor who is willing to help them out. They get into an argument because she believes he let the situation drag on for so long without doing anything. He argues that Santaville is his life and everything he has ever done is for the place. He wants her full support and not for her to be blaming him. Because if he loses Santaville, he has nothing left. He storms off angrily and she calls out to him that he has her. The next day, Ben meets Holly to tell her that they may have a lead, because he made those phone calls he promised, and someone is interested in the place. However, they would have to wait until morning to call him. Holly is so excited that she asks for details, but he doesn't want to jinx things. He likens it to waiting for Christmas Eve to open Christmas presents. She is surprised he opened his presents on Christmas Eve because that's when Santa arrives, and presents are opened on Christmas morning. It seems he doesn't know much about Christmas traditions. As she hugs him happily, Peter sees them while driving by. The next day, Holly meets Peter by the covered bridge. Her mom used to take her there when things were bothering her, to calm her by telling her stories and making her laugh. Peter believes her mom was a great person, but Nick never talks about her. She explains that her father's whole life was centered on family. So, her mother's passing greatly affected him. She was 12 years old then, and the way her father dealt with his grief was to be Santa all the time. But he was emotionally unavailable for her, his own family. She asks why he left abruptly that day, and he explains that his parents were in a hurry because they had a long drive ahead. He was going to school. She is shocked that he went to school during the holidays, but he reveals that his parents left him there to travel to Europe. His school had that option. On the plus side, he was able to graduate earlier, go to college and get several degrees. After school, his dad tried to fix him in the family business, but he rebelled and he got cut off as a punishment. So, he decided to do some personal traveling, and the only place he could think of was her town because he met her in Santaville that Christmas. She is amazed that he came back because of her, but that is the only place he felt welcomed. The only place he could have Christmas all day of the year. Even though her life is not all rosy, it is all he ever wanted. A place where he can be loved and wanted. Ben's call interrupts them. Holly meets with him and he reveals that his investors are willing to clear all her father's debt, but they want to be partners with her dad. They are big investors who have acquired 2 ski resorts. She worries that her dad would not want anyone interfering with how he runs the place, but he assures her that they would be silent partners and her dad would still have control. It sounds nice to her. She doesn't think he would reject the offer. However, she is wrong because when they meet him, his answer is a resounding no. He rejects Ben's offer because he thinks it won't end well. When she insists, he reminds her that she gave up on Santaville 5 years ago and she is doing the same thing now. She was supposed to be his #1 elf, but she didn't come back to help him run the place. Holly gets angry and bears her mind. She accuses him of not seeing her as his daughter but just an elf. He never showed her any emotional support ever since she lost her mom. She storms off angrily. The confrontation made her decide to leave and go back to the city. Peter meets her outside, followed by her father. He explains that when some people deal with grief, they tend to talk about everything else except what matters to them the most. Her father apologizes for listening to everyone else but her. Hence, he pleads for a chance to fix the whole situation. The next morning, Nick decides to turn in a new leaf. He talks about how amazing her mom was. For her to get an idea of who her mom was, he showed her the box of every single letter she sent to him. As they look through, he remembers every detail of their lives while she was still alive. The joy is visible on their faces. He gives Holly their wedding rings, hoping she will need them one day. He gives her a mistletoe from the first night he met her mom at a friend's party. She was standing under a mistletoe in the moonlight. He went right up and kissed her, and a year later Holly was born. That's why he always hangs a mistletoe every year. He believes in the magic of Christmas. Then, he reveals that he is willing to sign the contract with the investors if she thinks it's good. He realizes that she's smart like her mother and he trusts her judgment. She is happy to hear this and promises him that he won't regret it. Meanwhile, Earl looks over the contract and discovers that something is wrong. In the next scene, Holly goes to show gratitude to Peter for the night before. She appreciates the way he simplifies the truth because what he said helped fix the relationship between her and her dad. She reveals that he even agrees to sign the contract. Ben is happy that he gets to keep Santaville and mentions that she would also get to go back to the city. He invites her for a sleigh ride that night, but she declines because she is meeting Ben, who is working on getting the contract out to his investors. Peter wonders why he is rushing, and she mentions that the investors must close the deal before the end of the quarter, because their tax liability on the money doubles. Holly notices that the news did not excite him and he attributes it to his history with business. In the next scene, Earl fixes the bow on the Christmas tree, while Nick flirts with Jenny. Holly joins them all dressed up and looking beautiful. Earl thinks she has a date, but she reveals that she is meeting Ben for dinner to look over the contract. She asks Earl if the contract is okay and he assures her that it is fine. At the dinner, Holly appreciates Ben for helping lift a heavy weight off of her. For the first time in many years, she would be able to enjoy a Christmas holiday with her family. He points out that it is made possible with her effort in convincing her dad and the money their silent partners are bringing on board. She happily invites him to celebrate Christmas with her family and also with Della and Roger. At the mention of her friends, she suspects that something is off. She asks what he meant by their silent partners, but he dismisses it as a mistake. He accepts her invitation. Then he excuses himself to receive a call from the silent partner so he can give them the good news. Ben happily gives the good news to the investors that the signed contract is in his pocket. Meanwhile, the waiter brings their meal. So, Holly goes in search of Ben. Upon getting to him, she overhears him talking about the contract. It says that if Nick is unable to repay the entire amount in arrears by Christmas Day, then he forfeits all the property to the investment group. He rejoices over successfully deceiving them, and Holly is heartbroken. She walks out sad and in disbelief without him knowing that she was ever there. Holly gives the sad news to her dad, Earl, and Jenny. They don't want her to blame herself, but Earl takes the blame. He apologizes for failing to detect the errors in the terms of the contract. Recently, he has been finding it hard to focus. Nick doesn't want Earl to fault himself either. He takes the blame since it's his name that's on the contract. Jenny suggests that they should stop sharing the blame and think of a solution to the problem. Holly decides that she won't give Santa up without a fight. The others agree. They would fight to keep what is rightfully theirs. Later, Holly walks in the moonlight, blaming herself for the mistake. She runs into Peter and they go for a sleigh ride. She worries about the mistake she has made and blames herself for believing in Ben. She wonders how she will be able to raise such a huge amount of money, and Ben tells her she will have to bring many more visitors to Santaville. That way, she will be able to get the money, but she reminds him that Christmas is less than 3 weeks away. She reminds him that they don't have that many visitors anymore. People used to visit Santaville because it used to be a family tradition, but times have changed. Then she comes up with an idea. She suggests that they try to revive the old atmosphere. Then, hopefully, the people will come back. In the next scene, Holly gets to work. She helps her dad create a blog where he will write about Santa Day and all the fun activities available. It's all hands on deck as they put up signs around town as a reminder for Santa's Day. It works like a charm because the whole town's talking about it. Nick decides to bring back the annual Santaville tree lighting ceremony, and they are all excited. People keep buying their tickets, and Holly tells her dad that people keep calling after the TV interview she did. Nick is so proud of his daughter and wishes that his late wife could see her amazing daughter. Holly believes she will be proud of him too, and they remember that they have not hung the mistletoe yet. She tells her dad that her mom would also understand him being with Jenny. He is nervous about it, but she urges him to go for her. It is finally the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, and there is a huge turnout. Nick gives the child, who was once disappointed at Santaville, the honor of lighting up the tree, and he is super excited. Meanwhile, Ben is getting restless about the sudden turn of events. He assures the investors over the phone that there's no way they would be able to raise such a huge amount of money. The next day, Ben meets with Holly and tries to convince her that it's just business and she should understand better being a city girl, but she is so angry at him. He believes there's no way they will come up with the money and even tries to bribe her. She tells him off, telling him that he's no longer welcome there, but he still believes that she can't win. Holly meets with the bank manager to plead that he intervenes since they have deposited a substantial amount of money. He reminds her that January is a very slow month for any holiday business. Back at home, her father is excited at the turnout so far, but she did not reveal that she went to the bank. He commends her effort and she appreciates Peter's effort as well. He suggests that she take over the blogging because he is busy. Later, she vents her frustration to Peter and suggests that she will use her money to help out, but she does not inform her father because he won't allow it. She won't allow anyone to take her home, and Peter is amazed at how things have turned out. Some time ago, she was eager to get back to the city, and now she is fighting for her home. She mentions that she is still going home. She wonders why he spends his time making nutcrackers, and he reveals that it is his passion. As he explains to her, things get heated up and he kisses her. Jenny interrupts them that someone bought one of his nutcrackers for $500 and they are surprised. When they tell the others the news, they are amazed as well. Peter decides to sell the rest to help Nick out. Jenny plans to set up a booth so everyone can see it on display, while Holly will sell it on their website because Nick is getting lots of traffic on it. In the next scene, Peter is surprised to see Holly wearing the necklace he gave her years back. She had dug it up from her old jewelry box. She wears it, hoping it might bring them luck or Christmas magic. She confesses that she can't imagine her life without Santaville or him. They kiss and Peter wonders what happens if they lose. In the next scene, Holly calls her boss informing him about finding some unique handcrafted nutcrackers. The nutcrackers keep selling out as people order them across the country and beyond. It is almost midnight on Christmas Eve and everyone gathers at Santaville singing Christmas Carol. Holly talks about her love for Santaville and all the beautiful memories she has growing up, but unfortunately, they did not teach their goal. So, that is the last Christmas they will have there. Her father comforts her. Surprisingly, her boss needs her there, bearing good news. Their customers love the nutcrackers, so he wants to make her the sole distributor. This is great news, but she reveals that Peter is the artist who made them. Peter agrees on the condition that his workshop would be at Santaville since he got his inspiration from there. Holly also agrees to oversee the project from Santaville. Mr. Jennings commissioned one nutcracker for $8,000 to the delight of everyone. Nick kisses Jenny while Holly holds a mistletoe as she kisses Peter as well. Ben rips apart the contract and walks away as everyone rejoices excitedly. Holly narrates in her blog that Nick and Jenny run Santaville together while Holly and Peter gets married there. They are expecting a baby by next Christmas, and she urges everyone to come to Santaville and experience the magic of Christmas.